think people are starting to join. See some people coming on board. Well, we might as well just, as you know, for everyone who's just joining today here, we are waiting for everyone to get on board here, but we'll just kind of kick it off. My name is Paul Klein. I'm the founder and president of Impact, a company that helps corporations to benefit from solving social problems. And welcome to Change for Good Leadership. And I'm super, super pleased to welcome a colleague and friend who I've known for a long time, Rachel Hutchisson, who's Vice President of Global Corporate Social Responsibility at an amazing company called Blackbaud, which I'm sure everyone knows. And welcome, Rachel. First of all, it's just great to continue our conversation that we've started.
Yeah, we've been having this conversation for years now, which is great, and it's always fun and interesting. So it's terrific to be here. Well,
and for everyone joining, Rachel and I were chatting before, and we're going to do this this session in the way which we always do, which is to talk to each other, and
we just leap in.
And so for everyone joining today, I think that, to the extent that people want to be just a part of our conversation, as if we were in the same room, we would absolutely love that, because everyone here is involved in social change. And it's this takes me back to one of the first conversations that Rachel and I had, and I don't remember when that was now, a number of years ago. But one thing that I've always remembered that you said to me is good is for everyone.
Yeah.
And so I've never forgotten that. I've told so many people that and credited you for saying that. And I am again today. And so because people here participating in this are involved in social change in their own ways, you are part of that ecosystem that Rachel refers to. And when you say good is for everyone. So we're going to kick it off with a few, just going back and forth, as I said. One thing that I also want to just let everybody know that Rachel and I took this opportunity to write a new article, which we'll be happy to share with everybody, put it in the chat. And it's called 3 Ways to Accelerate Social Change. We wrote this over the last couple of weeks, and we're just super happy to share that with everyone. But let's just to kind of kick it off, Rachel, and continue our conversation, where as you and I have chatted about, this is a kind of best of times, worst of times scenario, right? Where we've got the pandemic has both amplified and accelerated things that were not so good, and people who were vulnerable before are even more vulnerable, and also at the same time has accelerated some very positive change and very positive response to issues that matter most. So, how do you think about this when you're thinking about the impact of COVID on social change and what's been amplified and what's been changed? What are you seeing?
Well, the first thing I'd say, Paul, is that it is such an interesting moment, because it proved to us very quickly that we are living in a global reality, that what's happening in China or India or some other place affects us at home wherever we are. And I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. My ability to buy something that I rely on, that I take for granted every day, is affected by something that's happening, completely around the world. So we're global. And then it also proved to us that we're hyper local. Like, I have never at a time, I think, known my neighbors as well in the last 20 years as I do now. Everybody on the street, everyone's needs, you're all trying to help each other. And it's just kind of been this leveling factor. So it's done, 2 things. Obviously, clearly there's a lot of need. I mean, this is like, there was already need before, and now there's this incredible need placed on top of all of, what we think of typically about social change. But then, like, I live in a city that's filled with people who work in the food and beverage industry, who were essentially gig workers. And I had lots of colleagues whose spouses, friends, partners, et cetera, all of a sudden, like, almost like lost their income overnight. So people who we didn't think of as even being in a disadvantaged population, all of a sudden were severely disadvantaged. So you have all these ways in which, like, the world kind of tilted, let alone the issues of, public health, clean water, all these other things. And so it just has just exploded. And there's so much to be sad about, but then there's all this exciting stuff. And then in the article that we wrote, we talked a little bit about technology, and there's been some incredible digital transformation over the past year and a half of organizations actually deploying tools they already had, but they hadn't used them this way, or getting over the fact that we could actually do things this way versus being in person. And I guess the trick will be how to learn the best and keep the best, and throw away the stuff that wasn't so good. But I don't know if any of that makes sense. But it's just like, we're global, we're hyper local. Things are innovative, and things are not great at the same time. It's like every week we're learning something new.
Yeah, totally, it makes sense. And also just thinking about what you just said, you're a leader at a company, Blackbaud, who itself, you've got a large global company, but you're kind of in the business of social change in a way yourselves. I mean, just in terms of
we're a infrastructure provider that helps organizations do the change that they need to do. Where they are helping them, we're just behind the scenes. And then, of course, we want to be an active participant in that ecosystem too.
And so how did Blackbaud's own work and response change during this time?
Oh gosh, so we went virtual overnight, and which is pretty, we have 3,300 people, and very, thankfully we'd worked a lot on our tech infrastructure, so we could do that. We could get access to, securely access all our information from home. But we did a lot of things, like really rapidly starting to train people managers, like, how do you manage virtual teams if you didn't have a virtual team? But it was like this great leveling thing that everybody was virtual. We used to have some people who were virtual and some people who weren't. And we did a lot of training. We've had a lot of focus on our employees' mental health and wellness. How do we support each other? And then a huge focus on our customers, and how do we help them, opening up all of our training for free and saying, you have some of the tools you need. Let's train you on how to use them. We give an example in the article of a school that went virtual, that already had the tools to do it. But they had to learn how to use them well. Others had to completely change how they worked, and still other customers couldn't work at all. So we did so many different things, lots of changes to products, lots of educational sessions, and then a lot of things focused on our own people. We did an after school program for last fall for our own employees' kids, where, like, I did this, like, needlepoint 101, or we had people, an executive showing people as tropical fish, and just to have these recorded or live sessions where you could put your kid in front of the computer and know they're in some helpful thing. We did some field trips, virtual field trips to some of our customers, aquariums, et cetera, so that the employee could go, like, make dinner, or, like, take a shower, or, like, do whatever they needed to do to take a break. So it's almost impossible to encapsulate how much we have changed, and continue to change. Our workforce strategy changed. We're hiring people all over the place, and trying to, again, keep what's good and let go of what we just had to go through, because the world is now very different.
So again, I think you're seeing it directly from your work, and I guess indirectly, I suppose, through the work of your customers. You're working with, I guess, charitable organizations and foundations, corporations, and so on, who are directly doing this work. Now that brings me back to where we started, and your thoughts about good is for everyone, which you had been talking about years ago. How has that changed? Like, are more people involved than they were, or what are you saying in terms of the changing roles of the different sectors in social change?
Yeah. So first, what did I mean by that when I said it? And I do believe it. I actually have note cards that say good is for everyone on it because it's like what I believe. And it's so basic. I say it like, well, no kidding. But it kind of gives people pause to say, "Ooh, what does that mean?" So the first thing it means is that I love the nonprofit and charitable world. I've worked within it and served within it for 30 years, but I don't think it is accurate or fair to say that nonprofits are the organizations that do good and companies are not. And so I did a TEDx talk years ago where I said that I graduated from college in the Gordon Gekko greed is good era. So anyone who remembers the Michael Douglas movie Wall Street, where like if you wanted to make money when you graduated, you went into business and you got a big job and you got like the Dolphin gray BMW, which was like the cool car back in the 80s. And if you wanted to do good, you got an MPA or you went to work for a nonprofit and you said, I am giving up the ability to ever make any money in my life, but I'm going to go be this good soul. And there really weren't other paths in between. And now I feel like, you know, there are ways to approach doing good and changing the world and having impact and focusing on causes that are not just one or the other. And so good is for everyone means that it really is every different kind of organization. But it has a second meaning too. And that meaning is that it's not just for big business. So if you focus in on business, it's not just the big guys who have the capacity to do something at a larger scale. And when I was starting this, building this function of Blackbaud, I'd look out for, well, who are the people doing great stuff? And it's all the examples are the big guys. And I'm like, but we're not a big guy. We're mid-sized. We were small then. Now we're mid-sized. But isn't it for everyone? Isn't it? And now you see businesses to the heart of your question. I think it's more prevalent. I think more people actually understand we're in the age of purpose. We have people who want meaning in their jobs. We have this growing focus on ESG and sustainability, where it's not just what you say and what you fund or what you believe, it's how you operate. And my son is graduating soon with a minor in sustainability. He cares about like how do we build sustainable organizations. And so I feel like things have finally caught up where people, how they shop, the mainstream business press, like these discussions are happening everywhere and they're more about all of us, which I think is really, really good because we still have a lot of progress to make.
I mean, I totally agree. And also, I also feel like there's something that to me doesn't exactly click either. Like I feel like in spite of everything that you just said and work that we do, there's still a lot of what I would call social change light, a lot of organizations who are approaching this in the most superficial way. And it's corporations like that, and not just actually, because there's a lot of nonprofit organizations and charities that don't do the right thing. And there's a lot of the whole emerging world of social enterprises, which in some ways has become not a flavor of the month, but it's there's a lot more rhetoric in the social enterprise space than actual reality in terms of, there's some great examples and there's a lot of things that don't work, which maybe is just the way it is. But, what's your sense of that, in terms of like I guess the question is, how do we know who's actually really doing authentically good work in terms of social change?
Yeah, this reminds me of, my kids are 21 and 23 now. And I remember standing in line with them at Starbucks and, talking to them about like what was advertising and what was actually like a good investment and how I chose to, give to certain organizations and do certain things. They're like, Mom, why are you not rounding up for X at the grocery store? It's like, because I'm taking a different approach, and it's not bad that they're offering me that, but it's not the approach that I'm taking. And if I want to give to homelessness, I'm going to do this instead of this. And you might think this organization is great because if you buy a t-shirt, X money goes to charity, but guess what? Most of that money is not going, so you really have to unpack it and think about it. I do think that the focus on ESG and sustainability is going to push us into a very new place. Companies are absolutely being held accountable to share what their goals are, to understand what's material, but that's for-profit. Organizations need to do this, and organizations cross sectors. So I think we're going to see a lot more focus on ESG practices in any kind of organization. But when you ask about like who does it well, that the examples that resonate the most are companies that are kind of like retail or, Patagonia. Patagonia is amazing. They really, they live this, and they're, if you read any of the wonderful work that they've published, they really believe it. But then there are other companies, like it's easy to see, like CVS decided it
Mm.
was going to be a health company and not a company that was a drugstore chain. And they
Mhm.
decided you can't be a health company and sell tobacco. And so they stopped selling tobacco. And everyone was petrified that their stock was going to crash, and it went up. And like, they actually have conversations. I've heard the leaders of CVS talk about the placement of sugary drinks in their store and how do you put them so that someone has to work a lot harder to get to that versus get to the water. Like it was a very interesting, like, you can't be a health company and sell tobacco. Like, okay, cool.
Right.
Chobani I love the Chobani example.
Fantastic. Mm.
Because here's this guy who buys an old, rundown factory in the middle of upstate New York and brings an entire community back by
Mm.
employing people. The classic story that the first thing they did was paint the outside of the building to show the community that they were going to invest in the community, even though they didn't really need to paint the outside of the building. And employing people, employing immigrants,
Mm.
bringing a whole community back, and then saying, where else can we do this? And yeah, they sell yogurt, and guess what? Their product is really good,
Mm.
and they think about their sustainability. My son educated me that you have to peel the plastic thing off so that you can recycle the container, but that's just a surface. You take that off and then you can recycle.
I didn't
But
know.
those are examples of, what makes them different. They're putting their desire to do good in many ways at the heart of their strategy. They are
Mm.
thinking about it at the core. And instead of saying, well, we give, doing what I think of as down the street and around the corner. Well, there's that foundation office over there. We give or we volunteer. Those things are good. We do
Mm.
all those things. But then
Mhm.
what do you do at the heart with your products, how do you treat your people?
Right.
All of that.
Well, this also makes me think of a rather polarizing example, but I think it's important to talk about, which is, many companies that are doing good and bad at the same time,
Yeah.
which there are a lot. And a number come to mind for me when I just said that. One is Amazon, I guess, which is one of the most, obvious examples. I just read something. I don't remember where it was today. I think it was actually in Fast Company. They've got a whole list of, like, an A to Z list of things that Amazon is doing, and some of which are very good, and some of which are not. There's they're investing in self-driving vehicles and zero emissions, and employing vast numbers of people that wouldn't have had jobs, and people are being able to get stuff at their front doors who maybe have been isolated and couldn't get that before. And there's all those things that are seemingly very good, and at the same time, freezing out unions, and there's all kinds of aspects to that company that have been sort of outed as not being so good. Now, how do we balance those two things?
Yeah, it's hard. Like, people love to hate Walmart, and the leaders at Walmart, the Walmart Foundation, do some amazing stuff.
Mm.
But there's also what's the rate of pay, and it's complex. So I think we're all on a journey, and I have my own opinions about the companies I want to support, and I think we all have to make those decisions. But no company, I think, is perfect. No company, even, you have to be really careful if you say, like, we are all about sustainability and we are this. I'm always saying we are on a journey and we are just starting, and our investors understand that. They understand we just want you to tell us what's material to you, what you're focused on, what you're going to measure, how you are going to try to change it, how you did change it, and just being honest and open. Because companies are like people. People can do bad things and be good people. And so it's like, how do you constantly self-reflect and get feedback from others to say, wow, we should rethink that practice? Because there are things we're thinking about today in the world that we never realized we needed to think about. Like, that's growth, right? So having a growth mindset means you're going to evolve and change and say, well, yeah, maybe that wasn't the right practice. But I'd like to think that most organizations are not approaching this as, let's go hide the bad stuff. I do think we had an era of that.
Mm.
But it's getting harder and harder not to engage in the conversation, because your people don't want to work for you if you don't have answers. But then companies don't get credit for a lot of things. People focus on certain behaviors and they don't focus on like their benefits packages and how they're helping their people and how they're training them and all the things that they're doing that are so good that often seem invisible, but
Mhm.
are really important. Like you can't have Main Street without business. You have to, it's a part of the world.
And also, what you just said also, like one of the things that I think about is, there's a talk about corporations as they're, talk about corporate social responsibility. I think is in part because a lot of people believe that there's an inherent irresponsibility in corporations, which I don't believe is true. I agree with you. So it's about the people, and good and bad things happen in all kinds of organizations. And on
Mhm.
the other side of it, with not-for-profit organizations, charitable organizations, it's like they don't have a lock on being ethical. Just because you're a charity or you're a nonprofit doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing everything perfect either. You know, and
Yeah.
uh, and I think that, I don't know, at least to me, the main thing more than ever comes back to, what is the degree to which an organization in any sector in the space that we're in, is actually contributing to moving the needle on a social issue that matters. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, good versus bad. And, it's
Mhm.
interesting because I like to think of the conversation as being about organizations and not for profit, nonprofit. Um, because like, what would we do if we didn't have refrigeration? Like,
Right.
what would we do if we didn't like we we wouldn't be able to refrigerate the COVID vaccine? Like, we need certain things that are coming. Great innovation comes from business, and we need that innovation, and we need to deploy that innovation for social good causes. I think it's interesting, that 50 years after Milton Friedman, we finally are like, okay, no, 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 we're catching up. We're realizing we're a part of this, and bringing it back to kind of the way I've seen it is that you need all these, you need everybody at the table. It's not just one sector. And if we leave, I think we've left a lot of, just because of the way, and I'm in the US, obviously, but we've left some things to, oh, well, government will take care of that. And then government doesn't take care of it. And, oh, the nonprofit sector will take care of that. Well, this is about us and our people and our world and our society. So we all kind of need to help take care of
You mentioned a few, like Chobani and others, but I think who else comes to mind for you? Like nonprofit, corporate, it doesn't really matter, as you say. It's who's making a difference.
it.
But
Oh gosh, so many people are making a difference. And, I'm so inspired by just like individual people who, people I work with who just are passionate about, individual things, people doing crowd fundraising campaigns, going out, and I don't know if you followed the Captain Tom campaign, who he was knighted, passed away after he turned 100, but walked 100 lengths of his I think it was 100 lengths of his guard to raise money for the NHS charities, because they had treated him after he broke his hip at 99, and he ended up raising 30 million, 50 million, some incredible amount. It was like at the moment when COVID was just exploding, and it gave us all hope, and it taught us that generosity is alive and well. And generosity is something that's not just about giving money, it's about helping people. And I think there is a deep spirit of generosity in people, but maybe forgotten
right,
we've forgotten that, not that it hasn't been happening, but we've forgotten how to codify and talk about it and lift it up.
right.
Um, but we need it. And I do think one of the gifts of the pandemic, dual pandemics that we've been in, is people are actually more intentional about connecting with other people and valuing the time you actually get with another person, or valuing taking a walk and seeing their neighbors. And in a
Mhm.
way that we had gotten into I've got to get on another airplane, I don't have time to exercise because I'm in traffic. It
Mhm.
kind of hit reset. And I hope that we get back to not the way it was, but this new continuing to value humanity and humans more
Mhm.
than we were.
Yeah, I feel like, in most of the conversations I have, you do get a sense that, well, like you just said, Rachel, that I feel like people are looking for a sense of meaning, I think, in their lives, maybe more than,
Absolutely.
you know, in the context of a whole lot of uncertainty. I think that's what matters. And I think that, coming back to, social change organizations, whether that's a not-for-profit corporation, social enterprise, it doesn't really matter. I think that those organizations that tap into that kind of hunger for meaning that people have are the ones that are, really positioned to be successful,
Yeah.
Just thinking
And
about
this generation coming up, they are all about meaning.
Yeah.
And my 23-year-old just took a job in refugee resettlement. I mean, that's his thing. He wants to help people. He's interested in helping refugees and displaced people, and that is his passion, and that is what feeds him. My youngest kid is all about sustainability and how do we address these, how do we fix these issues? He worries about the state of the world and the climate. And it's like they're growing up in a world. Think about the world they grew up in, the last 20 some years. Really interesting to see how different that is from the mindset of when I graduated.
For sure. Well, actually, speaking of that, I just had the really amazing good fortune to spend the last 2 days. There's a school, the University of Western Ontario here, a couple hours east west of Toronto, has a college there called Huron College, and which honestly I did not know too much about. But what I found out about what is going on there is just incredible, because it's a place where they are creating a new generation of social change leaders. And, there's an intent around that. And I had an opportunity to meet some of the students there, people there from around the world. And these people, I was just thinking, like when I was in university, I had no clue. I had no ability. I had no clue. And I really, really just wanted to play my guitar, pretty much. That was really what I was interested in. But it's a far cry from the folks that I spent the last 2 days with, who are incredibly passionate, really capable, and extremely committed to social change. And these are the next generation of leaders. I think it's phenomenal.
I want to go back and take some of the classes that my son was like, should I take this class on organizational sustainability? And I was like, I'd like to take that class. Just because it's all unfolding in front of us. And the fact that these faculty are putting these kind of multidiscipline approaches together with students across different majors to really learn together, it's so exciting.
Oh, great. Well, the other thing I, just think about, again, I don't know if it's a kind of COVID coincidence or, related to all this, but I've just been following, there's a company called Cheekbone Beauty. And if anyone's interested in checking this out, Cheekbone Beauty, this was started by someone who actually we did a Change for Good conversation with at some point last year. And she is an Indigenous woman here in Canada, started this company, Cheekbone Beauty, based on her own lived experience as an Indigenous person, and has created this company where, I can't speak to the quality of caliber of the actual, makeup products, but as a company that is addressing social change within the Indigenous community, employing people, putting money back into it, developing, sourcing products that are, natural and local products and so on. It is one of the most incredible success stories. And then I read that they've just, but I think I'm right in saying that they're now carried in Sephora or something. Like they've had some huge success. Yeah. And I wonder, and it's all a lot of it during COVID.
Yeah.
I think, and so perhaps it's, and you look at that company, you think, well, here's a company that's got purpose and meaning, just running right through it. And maybe there's no surprise they're doing well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, this is the frustrating thing with these conversations is
they go too fast.
Too fast. But anyway, at least for you and I know this is not going to stop. So we're going to
No, it's not
at this. But sadly for everyone else here, we only have a half an hour. But I will say that I think this has been shared in the chat already. This article that you and I wrote, and which is called 3 Ways to Accelerate Social Change. And that's on I think it's the Your Cause. Is that the
Your Cause blog? Yeah. Your
Cause blog.
Yeah.
So people can access that, and we really hope people will read it and share it and so on. And Rachel, I just can't thank you enough for another amazing conversation.
Hey, it's great to be here. We just keep, peeling back the layers of the onion on this like evolving thing. And that's the thing, it's a journey. And people always say, where do you start? Well, it's a journey. You start where you are and you are honest about it, and you just keep moving it forward, and be okay with saying, oh, wow, we shouldn't have done that. And we're going to change that as we move forward together.
As a friend of mine says, John Packer says, if there was a button to push that you could say, okay, we can figure it out, we would have already pushed that button.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's why these conversations and this kind of collaboration is so important. And
yeah,
we're going to keep that going. That's
right. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone who joined us today, and good is for everyone.
That's right. It is.
Here. Okay. Bye.